If you are listening to this podcast, it means you're searching for someone who understands you, someone who gets you. You are yearning to be understood and to belong. Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where we help smart, talented, and sensitive people navigate an often insensitive world. I am Dianne Allen, your host. My roles as ambassador, author, speaker, and intuitive mentor for bright and talented people are woven into each episode. I have the experience and knowledge to educate and inspire, as I have been there and I understand your unique intensities, sensitivities, and challenges. Welcome. ADHD and romance. The benefits are great. Hi, friends. It's Dianne here at Someone Gets Me, and I want to talk about the benefits, the payoff in having ADHD in a relationship or being in a relationship and having romance with someone who has ADHD. Because so often we hear about all the challenges, all the difficulties, all the bullying, all of those things that happen. And yes, they're all very real. But I want to focus this episode on some of the benefits, some of the payoffs. Now, we all know that I'm a twice exceptional person, and I have a lot of the flavor of ADHD. Though I've never been officially diagnosed, I can tell you I relate to all of it. And many of the people I work with have the symptoms, the flavor, if you will, or even the diagnosis of ADHD. And it's very common in people who are gifted and intensely sensitive. And I talk about some of these factors in my book, Someone Gets Me, about intense sensitivities. And so this episode is more about the benefits of being in a relationship with someone who has ADHD or being the person that has ADHD and seeking and being in and fulfilled in a romantic or intimate relationship of any kind as somebody that has ADHD. Now, part of it here is realizing that love in all of its flavors is a choice. You know, beyond all the feelings, beyond the oxytocin, beyond all of those things, we are always making choices. We're making choices about who we love intimately, romantically. We're making choices about who and how we love in our family, in our friends, in our spiritual family, all the different people that we love in whatever way we're talking, whether it's love as friends, brotherly love, right? That unconditional agape love, whether it's love that has romantic interests in it, or maybe it's love because you simply respect the person, right? So there's all kinds of love. Now, this also includes the connection you have with yourself as a person with ADHD, because often in our culture, we're taught to look outside of ourselves. So if we're looking for a relationship, it's usually discussed in looking at another person. Well, I also like to include looking at yourself, looking at your relationship with you. So this episode has 6 different areas where romance and relationship with an ADHD person has benefits and huge payoff. So let's start. The first one is intuition. And I speak about intuition a lot. I'm an intuitive mentor for gifted creative people, and I've been intuitive my entire life. In fact, when I think it was the second meeting that I had with Mr. Loggins, when he said, "How long have you been like this?" And what he was asking me was, "How long have you been intuitive enough to see and know things to really support and help people on a very deep level?" And I looked at him and I said, "Forever, I guess. I can't remember when it started, so it must have always been here on some level." And since then, because that was years ago, when we first met, I realized that has been my whole life. And so that intuition is that ability to know and see things and sense into relationships of all kinds, including with ourselves, sense into our reality in a way that transcends linear thinking and is often quite profound. Many gifted people and people with ADHD are ahead of their time. I know that when I have a great idea, especially when I was working in big companies, it would take somewhere between 18 months and 2 years, and sometimes longer, for other people to start seeing the things that I could see and sense. And so that intuitive ability that ADHD people have can be really used in your favor. If you're in a relationship with somebody who has ADHD and they're very intuitive, you can use that in your favor, right? You can use these things to help support your life and to support the relationship and to support how you navigate the world. Intuition is very important to honor and know. And Forbes magazine even said that intuition is the highest form of intelligence. So not all intelligence is linear. So intuition is one of my favorite topics. I live by my intuition, and it's very prevalent in people with ADHD. Now, some people say that intuition comes because ADHD people are often bullied or treated harshly or hypersensitive and all of those things, and it's like a coping skill or a well-tuned instrument or muscle that they've developed over their lifetime. And I believe that the piece of that is true, but I also believe that ADHD people come in with intuition and then they figure out how to navigate through life's challenges and difficulties, and then it reemerges even more powerfully. So I think there's validity in all the different ways to look at it, but realize that we all have an inherent gift to know and see beyond the linear cognitive reality. We have to make the choice to develop that muscle. The second thing I want to talk about is the ability to play and have fun. I love to have fun and be spontaneous. Now, when I was younger and I was living in an environment that was not supportive of that spontaneous fun part, it was shut down, and I was very introverted in an internal shy sense. And so as I've gotten older and my environment is safe over the years, I'm able to go have more fun and be spontaneous with friends. Now, ADHD people need more dopamine. That's part of the issue, is a lack of dopamine in the brain, which is that let's go have fun. So this is where you're going to find the thrill seekers, or let's go do things. Racing sailboats, it fills that for me. It can be very dangerous and very thrilling. And there's lots of other things that we do. And so stimulation, excitement is something that ADHD people crave, they love, and they survive, they survive it. So if you are in a relationship with someone who has ADHD, they're always wanting to go have fun. If you are the person with the ADHD, you want to go have fun and be stimulated and do stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. Not too long ago, somebody even said to me, "You're always busy. You're always doing something." And I said, "Yes." And so what was that about? Like, was it an observation, or was it a passive judgment? I don't know. But what I do know is that that's yes. I'm always doing something. And I always make time for the things that are important to me. And because there's lots of other parts of my giftedness that help me create, that having fun in my creating really keeps my brain balanced. And so having fun and being stimulated and doing things is an asset. So rather than trying to make yourself sit and be bored, it's okay to do things. It's okay to be stimulated. It's okay to go out there and have a good life, as long as you're not hurting yourself, right? As long as you are being respectful of yourself and others. The third thing is a great capacity for empathy. Gifted people, ADHD people, are often very warm-hearted. I work with a lot of people with ADHD, and I have that flavor myself. And I don't know anybody that has ADHD that is not warm-hearted. Now, sometimes people have kind of a hard exterior because of their life experience, but underneath that is a warm heart. They often are so empathetic and so connected that they can get into the feelings of others. That's what empathy is, being able to feel what others are feeling. And I believe that is a huge benefit when it comes to a relationship, and especially to romance. That when you are in a relationship with somebody who has ADHD, they know, they can sense and know and connect to you in ways that don't need words. And in the English language, we don't have enough words to express the depth of relationship and romance anyway. So to be able to connect on a level that's nonverbal is beautiful. Now, if you're somebody who lacks integrity and you want to hide what's going on, being in a relationship with an ADHD person probably isn't your smartest move because they will know. They have the intuition and the empathy to know if something's shifting or changing. So this really supports, I believe, the benefits of romantic relationships and even really close friends sometimes, right? Is we just know things and we can sense and feel them before sometimes some people are even aware of them themselves. So that warm-hearted empathy, I believe, is a huge benefit for romance and relationships with an ADHD person. The third thing that I was thinking about is charisma and that ability to be excited about knowledge and diving deep and being interested in lots of different things. Because people who have ADHD love to learn all kinds of different things, the knowledge base over time becomes vast and incredible. And I remember, this is a funny story. I remember when I was first learning and working in the mental health field, I was probably like 19 or 20. And I was working in a psychiatric hospital and I was walking down the hallway doing something. And I remember hearing this voice in my head that now I believe was my intuition. At the time, I just thought it was a thought. And it said, learn as much as you can about everything you can. And I'm like, well, okay, well, I already kind of do that. Good. Moved on. Well, years ago, I mean, as the years have progressed, I know that all the different things I've learned have paid off in working with my clients, in navigating this world, in feeling fulfilled for my own life, and in all my relationships. Because people who have this ADHD flair, we're interested in lots of things and like to know lots of things and dive into content we love and follow ideas that we love. And so in my work, I work with neuroscience researchers and I can talk neuroscience language. I work with musicians and I can talk music. I can talk travel, being on tour, and all of it because I've experienced it, learned about it, and understand it. And there's many other things when I work with teenagers about high school and about transition, do lots of work on transitions with people, right? And so that ability to have a vast knowledge base and have interesting tidbits of information is a gift. It is a benefit. It is a payoff for being in relationship with somebody who has ADHD. And those of you who have it, that is a gift. It's a benefit. That charisma, if you will, that excitement for learning and excitement for knowing things can really develop into something powerful and magnificent when it comes to relationships. So honor that part of you that loves to know things and learn things. Even just this morning before I started recording, I was learning. I found a book that was in my library I hadn't read in a while, and I started reading different parts of it and digesting the information differently than I did when I bought the book like 9 years ago. And it was wonderful. And somehow, some way, I know this week, that connection, that piece of that book that I dove into this morning will show back up as a benefit for myself, any one of my clients, or any one of my colleagues or friends, because that's how it works. And I love that. So that's what following your intuition, picking up the book that I wasn't really planning on studying this morning and opening it and feeling into it. That's the empathy part, right? And then using my charisma and my attention to dive into it, feel into the information differently than I read it when I read it years ago, and see how, and be open to how can this serve my relationships this week, this year, the rest of my life. How can it work in our favor? That's a fun benefit and asset. The fourth thing is loyalty. Now, loyalty is one of those things that in my experience with my clients and with myself, can be a little bit tricky sometimes. People with ADHD and gifted people tend to be very loyal, even in turmoil. And what I notice is we tend to hang on longer than we should onto things that are difficult. And because we're always thinking there's got to be a way to figure this out, we can figure it out. We can figure it out. And we make excuses for other people's not so great behavior and sometimes for our own, right? We tend to be intensely sensitive. That's overexcitabilities plus intuition. And I talk about that by Someone Gets Me book as well. But what part of that intense sensitivities is we tend to be generous beyond what is correct or right or just. So generous beyond measure, if you will. And so when we're overly generous, then in our world, sometimes it's like, well, I'm just being generous. But when we're overly generous, it can get in the way of romance and relationships, giving too much too fast. And there was a phrase I used to have, actually, I printed it out, had it in my wallet when I was younger. And it said, a sense of self means knowing what I have to offer and not offering it too quickly. So we learn the boundaries of how much of ourselves to give and be generous, because in that loyalty, sometimes we can overdo it. That can kind of turn loyalty into that double-edged sword where it comes out of benefit category and heads more toward, an issue or a liability. So we want to know that loyalty and giving and having that tenacity and standing by the person that we care about and we love and having a deep understanding also can go too far. And I think that's true with everything. We can have too much fun and go do dangerous things and hurt ourselves, right? We can be over the top. So the loyalty piece is where I see a lot of people who have ADHD really needing to work a little bit on that. What's the boundary with that, so that they're not giving beyond what is appropriate for the situation, and they're not stepping into an area that could then later cause a little bit more challenges than they would like. So it's common for a person with ADHD in a relationship to be loyal, even in turmoil, or even when there's a trouble, or even when there is something not going in a productive, kind, great way. And that's an asset at times. So I want you to hear me when I say your loyalty is amazing and great. I also want you to hear me when I say your inner boundaries about how to live that loyalty as an ADHD person are critical to your happiness. Because when you overgive, because giving is a wonderful thing and we love to do it, but when we overdo it, we can undermine the very thing we seek. I've done that personally when I was much younger, where I actually did it with a couple friends. It wasn't even intimate. It was, I just really liked the person and I was doing nice things. And I was in my early 20s, I think. And it didn't serve the relationship. I can't say that friendship ended, but it didn't serve it to go too far. And so I learned how to back off, and it felt a little funny. But then once I saw that inner boundaries and I started teaching myself about inner boundaries and working on them, then that giving and being generous beyond measure with the intense sensitivities really can work in our favor, and not where we're not overextending ourselves. So that loyalty is a big one. And the last thing I want to talk about is creativity. You as an ADHD person, or you who's listening on behalf of one, are very creative. You're among the most creative people in history. Many people, even those not diagnosed, before it was even a term, were very creative people. And there's a lot of people out in the world right now who aren't diagnosed, like me. But we have the flavor of it. We identify it. We can go, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. We self-understand it. Then that creativity is something that is a huge asset in your relationships and in your romance. It means you're a really good problem solver. You can see things in a way that is fluid and deep and amazing and profound. You can be creative in music. in writing, in art, in all kinds, cooking, all kinds of things. And so it adds dimension, nuance, diversity to your romantic life and to all of your relationships, including the relationship with you. So your creativity puts you in position to receive life's blessings and satisfaction and happiness in a whole different light when you allow it to show up. So I speak a lot to my people about standing in their sovereignty, standing in your sovereignty, being who you are, knowing that you have agency to bring all of your quirkiness, all of your gifts, all of your talents into your world. The key here is inner boundaries. How much of you to bring and what parts of you to bring to different scenarios and different situations. And that is where you can really ramp up your satisfaction and happiness because you are a creative being. You can create an environment, an experience, a relationship that serves the highest good for all concerned. It's possible and you can do it. What matters is that you stand in your integrity and your sovereignty with respect and care and compassion for yourself and all people involved in the situation, whether you're talking about an intimate partnership or you're talking about relationships with your colleagues or lots of friends or whatever. It's the same kind of process. It's just different levels of intimacy. And there's 8 different levels of intimacy. So there's lots of variance here. But what I want you to hear me say when I say this is that ADHD in your romantic life and your relationships can be a bigger payoff than we often hear out in the world. We hear in the world all the challenges. And yes, those challenges are real. And while we have real challenges, there is also real benefit. So here are the benefits again. Intuition, knowing things, right? We know beyond what the linear world can see. The ability to have, the second one is the ability to have fun. It raises dopamine and it allows us to bring a little spark of excitement into things. And then we have empathy, loyalty, our ability to know things, the charisma and that part of us, and then our creativity. How beautiful is that, right? So if you have ADHD or you're in relationship with someone that has ADHD or the flavor of it, know that as much as the world wants to say, this is what's wrong with you, and we need to honor where the challenges are so that we can work with them so that they don't control our lives and drive it backwards. And what I'm saying is, if you look at these benefits, especially in your romantic life, you will then begin to attract and create and enhance that part of your life that will add extra fulfillment, satisfaction, love, and kindness. So allow yourself to see the benefits while you're working on the challenges, because it's not all a problem. I hope this episode has served you well. If you know anybody with ADHD or in relationship with somebody, send them this episode so they can see the benefits too and start honoring what's good and right and true in all of us. Remember, everyone, to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you because you're a rock star. You're here on purpose with a purpose. And until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, be well. Are you tired of searching for someone to understand you? Join our Facebook group, Someone Gets Me. In this group, you will be able to connect with others who are intense, sensitive, smart, and talented. I share my insights and teachings, and you can connect with others in a real, authentic, safe forum. So join us today. Someone Gets Me.